I was staring at the envelope on my plate, my hands trembling slightly as I recognized my own handwriting on the return address label. It was Father's Day, and instead of the usual awkward hug or generic card, my children had given me a one-way ticket to a nursing home. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. My name is Charles Wilson, and at 76 years old, I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at me. I was wrong. That Sunday afternoon, sitting at Rebecca's dining room table with the smell of pot roast filling the air, pot roast I'd brought, by the way, I discovered just how little I really knew about the people I'd spent my entire life loving. Let me back up a bit. My story doesn't start with that envelope. It starts 48 years ago when my wife Sarah died suddenly, leaving me alone with two kids who needed everything from me. Brian was 12, Rebecca was 10, and I was a 38-year-old electrician who suddenly had to figure out how to be both mom and dad. I wasn't educated, never made it past high school, but I knew how to work, and work I did. Double shifts, weekend jobs, anything to keep food on the table and clothes on their backs. While other kids their age were getting rides from both parents, mine were walking to school because I was already at work by 6 in the morning, crawling through attics and fixing broken circuits. I remember Sarah's voice sometimes, especially late at night when I'd collapse into bed after a 16-hour day. "Charles," she used to say, "those kids are going to remember how hard you tried." I held on to that thought through every sacrifice, every missed dinner, every time I had to tell them we couldn't afford something their friends had. But somehow, I made it work. Brian got into a good private school on a scholarship I helped him apply for, spending hours at the kitchen table filling out forms I could barely understand. Rebecca got her braces, her dance lessons, her graduation dress. When Brian wanted to study abroad in college, I took out a second mortgage. When Rebecca decided to open her own beauty salon, I cashed in my pension early to help with the down payment. "Dad, you don't have to do all this," Rebecca would say, but there was something in her voice that suggested she expected it anyway. Brian was more direct. "Thanks, Dad, this'll really help my career prospects." Always thinking about his career prospects, that one. The years passed, and I got older. My hands started aching from all those years of electrical work. My back complained every morning when I got out of bed. But my kids were successful now. Brian was a corporate lawyer. Rebecca owned 3 salons, and I figured all those sacrifices had been worth it. That's when things started changing. Brian would invite me to his firm's parties, then spend the whole evening giving me subtle corrections. "Dad, it's hors d'oeuvres, not horse devours. Dad, maybe don't tell that story about the time you electrocuted yourself." Always with that embarrassed smile, like I was a child who couldn't be trusted around his important friends. Rebecca was worse in some ways. When her wealthy clients were around, she'd introduce me as Charles. He helps with the landscaping. Not my father, just Charles, the help. I'd stand there holding pruning shears I didn't need, playing along with her charade because I didn't want to embarrass her. But I kept showing up. Every Father's Day, every birthday, every holiday, I'd bring food, bring gifts, bring whatever piece of myself they were willing to accept. Because that's what fathers do, right? We keep loving, even when it hurts. This past Father's Day started like all the others. I drove to Rebecca's house with a chocolate cake I'd bought from the bakery, the expensive one, because nothing was too good for family dinner. Brian was already there with his wife Jennifer, both of them dressed like they were attending a board meeting rather than a family meal. "Dad!" Rebecca hugged me at the door, but it felt rehearsed. Come in, come in. We have something special planned." I should have known right then. The dining room table was set too formally, like they were hosting strangers. Brian kept checking his phone. Jennifer barely made eye contact. And there was an envelope beside my place setting, thick and official-looking. "Happy Father's Day, Dad," Brian said, gesturing toward the envelope with what I can only describe as smug satisfaction. We really outdid ourselves this year. My stomach dropped even before I opened it. Inside was a boarding pass, a one-way ticket to Phoenix, and a glossy brochure for something called Sunset Manor Luxury Senior Living. The departure date was 2 days away. Surprise! Rebecca clapped her hands together like she was announcing a vacation. We found you the most beautiful place, Dad. It's got everything. Medical staff, activities, other people your age. You'll love it there. I looked at the ticket, then at my children, then back at the ticket. This is a one-way flight. Well, yes, Brian cleared his throat. We thought it would be easier this way. Clean break, fresh start. The facility's already paid for. Don't worry about the cost. I paid for with what money? Rebecca and Brian exchanged a glance. Your money, obviously. We've been managing your finances for a while now, remember? You signed those papers last year. I did remember. They'd said it was just to help me with bill paying, make things easier as I got older. I'd trusted them completely. Besides, Rebecca continued, cutting herself a piece of the cake I'd brought, it really is for the best. You'll have people taking care of you, and we won't have to worry anymore. That word, worry. Like I was a burden they'd been carrying, a problem that needed solving. I smiled then. Not because I was happy, but because something crystallized in that moment. Something I'd been avoiding for years. My children didn't love me. They tolerated me. They'd taken everything I had to give, and now that I was older, less useful, they wanted me gone. You know what? I said, folding the boarding pass carefully and tucking it into my shirt pocket. Thank you. This is exactly what I needed. The relief on their faces was heartbreaking and infuriating all at once. 2 days later, I was on that plane to Phoenix, carrying a single suitcase and a secret my children knew nothing about. See, I may not have had much education, but I wasn't stupid. And I had one friend they'd forgotten about. My old buddy Pete, who'd been doing my taxes and managing my investments for 30 years. 3 months earlier, when I started noticing how my children looked at me, Pete and I had a conversation. Charles, he'd said over coffee at our usual diner, you know they're planning something, right? Rebecca asked me about your liquid assets last week. Wanted to know how quickly you could access your funds. That's when we'd made our plan. Pete helped me move 95% of my money into an irrevocable charitable trust. If my kids wanted to ship me off, I'd make sure my money went somewhere that would actually appreciate it. Sunset Manor was everything the brochure promised. Beautiful grounds, professional staff, and residents who'd been discarded by their families just like I had been. The difference was, I hadn't come there to disappear. I'd come there to make a statement. On my 3rd day at Sunset Manor, I asked the director if I could use their community room for a small announcement. They had a little setup for live streaming family events, something they used to help residents stay connected with loved ones. Perfect for what I had in mind. I sat in front of that camera, looked directly into the lens, and told my story. All of it. The years of sacrifice, the second mortgages, the pension I'd cashed out. The way my children had shipped me off, like unwanted furniture. And then I announced my decision. I'm donating 95% of my estate to create a new wing at Sunset Manor, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. It'll be called the Last Ticket Wing, dedicated to seniors whose families have forgotten what love actually means. The remaining 5% goes to help at-risk youth learn empathy, something my children apparently missed in their education. I signed the papers right there on camera, Pete serving as witness via video call. Within hours, the video had been shared thousands of times. By the next morning, it was on the local news. By the end of the week, national outlets were calling it the Father's Day revenge that broke the internet. The attention was overwhelming. Reporters wanted interviews. Other nursing homes wanted to replicate the program. Complete strangers sent letters of support and donations. For the first time in years, I felt valuable again. Brian and Rebecca, on the other hand, weren't having quite the same experience. The video made them infamous in all the wrong ways. Rebecca's salons started losing clients who recognized her from the news coverage. Google reviews for her business filled up with comments about how she treated her father. Brian's law firm put him on administrative leave while they reviewed the situation, which was corporate speak for, "We don't want to be associated with the guy who dumped his dad in a nursing home on Father's Day." They tried to fight back, of course. Filed a lawsuit claiming I wasn't mentally competent to make financial decisions, that I'd been manipulated. But Pete had been thorough. Every document was properly executed, every step legally bulletproof. The judge who heard their case took one look at the video evidence and dismissed their claim. "Your father appears to be of sound mind and generous spirit," he told them during the hearing. "Perhaps you should focus on repairing your relationship rather than contesting his choices." That's when they finally came to see me. 6 weeks after their lawsuit failed, Rebecca and Brian showed up at Sunset Manor looking like they hadn't slept in days. "Dad," Rebecca started, her voice shaking. "We made a mistake. We want to make this right." I was sitting in the garden, enjoying the Phoenix sunshine and reading letters from supporters around the world. I didn't look up from my book. "Dad, please," Brian tried. "We're sorry. We didn't understand how our actions would affect you." "Oh, you understood perfectly," I said, finally meeting their eyes. "You understood that I was inconvenient. You understood that caring for an aging parent might interfere with your busy lives. You understood exactly what you were doing." "We want to take care of you now," Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face. "Come home with us. We'll do better." I stood up slowly, my old bones creaking in protest. "You gave me a one-way ticket, remember? Well, I used it, and now I'm home." They tried arguing, pleading, even threatening, but I'd learned something important in my 76 years. You can't love someone into loving you back. All you can do is love yourself enough to walk away from people who don't value what you offer. The last ticket wing opened 6 months later, fully funded, and serving 24 residents whose families had abandoned them. At the dedication ceremony, I cut the ribbon with hands that no longer trembled, surrounded by friends who'd chosen to be there rather than people who felt obligated. A reporter asked me if I regretted my decision, if I missed my children. "I miss the children they used to be," I said. "But I don't regret choosing dignity over desperation. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the natural consequences of their choices." Today, I'm 77 years old. I live in a place where I'm respected and valued. I have friends who enjoy my company and staff who genuinely care about my well-being. My days are filled with purpose. I help run the facility's family reconciliation program, working with other seniors whose children want to repair damaged relationships. Some families make it through our program successfully. The children learn to see their parents as whole people deserving of love and respect. Those reunions are beautiful, filled with genuine apologies and changed behaviors. Other families don't make it. The adult children aren't willing to do the hard work of examining their own actions, or they're only interested in reconciliation if it means access to inheritance. Those cases are heartbreaking, but necessary. Not every story gets a happy ending, and that's okay too. Brian and Rebecca still send letters sometimes. They've both lost their businesses, their marriages strained by the public scandal and financial pressure. They want another chance, they say. They've learned their lesson. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Either way, they gave me a one-way ticket to my new life, and I'm grateful for it. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be exactly what you needed. I learned that love isn't about sacrifice and endurance. Real love is about mutual respect, genuine care, and choosing to be present in someone's life because you want to be there, not because you have to be. I spent 48 years confusing obligation with love, giving with receiving. My children taught me the difference, just not in the way they intended. The last lesson I want to share is this: it's never too late to choose yourself. At 76, I thought my story was over, that I'd missed my chance for happiness and respect. I was wrong. The best chapter of my life started with a one-way ticket I never wanted and a decision to stop accepting less than I deserved. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in my story, either as the parent or the child, Remember that it's never too late to change course. Love requires action, not just words. Respect requires effort, not just intention. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. That's the real gift my children gave me on Father's Day. The opportunity to discover who I was when I stopped trying to be who they wanted me to be. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, just click on the box on the screen. Thank you so much for listening.